This is another Universe Productions podcast with Nick Jerzak, Eric Jaworski, Jake Minter, Emily Jung, and Connor Jordan. And we're talking DC Comics.
Yay.
This is going to be the best and worst thing ever for me.
I think with the one key thing here is to make sure that we don't talk over each other, because then the audio cuts. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I guess the big thing here first is to ask, how long have people been reading DC?
Like, just ourselves, or just everyone in general? Like, the entire public?
Ourselves.
Well, considering we're not talking to the universe.
Just the phrasing of that question just seems like it was like how long have people been reading the entire history of comics?
Am I talking to everybody in the universe?
How long have people in this conversation been reading DC Comics?
Yeah. So
Jesus, do I have,
that's a better.
I have to make things extra...
Who answers when?
Yeah, like, I have to make things extra
Does Vertigo
specific
count?
just for Eric. I guess Vertigo counts because it is an offshoot of DC.
I would count
Alright,
it.
well, I mean, I've been reading Vertigo since I was 12, but I didn't really start in earnest on DC until I was like 16.
Okay, and how old are you now?
22.
Awesome. Because that kind of gives us a
either
gauge of
6 or 10
time.
years, depending on how you think of it. Yeah. I don't read it as closely as many others do. I don't read everything in the DC continuity. Obviously, I have
I don't
time
think
to
anyone
have a
reads
job
all of
and
it.
have an education, but yeah. Most of what I read in DC is Batman. Almost anything connected to Batman that I can find, and and then beyond that, mostly Vertigo and Question. Yes.
I love the question so much.
Mr. Jaworski.
Yeah, so, all right.
Edit
I
that
guess.
out.
Like, should I talk about the comics in general, or just the sort of universe? of DC?
How long have you been reading DC Comics?
Okay, I've literally been reading DC Comics this past school year, so I started the fall of 2013. And I think like the first comic I bought was Batman Noir, which was actually kind of like interesting artwork. But yeah, it's just sort of like spread out there where it's like I want to get more comics, and got more Joker comics, got a few Green Arrows, a few Batman, a few Deathstroke, so it's kind of been building up for the past year now.
Miss Jung.
Only a couple months. I started in January of 2014 and still, but mostly Batman and Superman. That's pretty much it.
And going with
DC-wise, anyway.
the crown jewel of Connor Jordan.
I have been reading DC Comics for 14 years. And for the record,
18.
my collection is about 250 hardcovers and trade paperbacks sitting in my room. I have literally filled the bookshelf, and I need another one.
So basically, have half of a retirement investment right there if you ever need to sell it off.
Well, here's the
your college
thing.
fund.
One of my friends actually did the math on about how much I've spent, and we're closing in on $9,000.
And how much would that collection be worth in a certain amount? How much will it be? Will it eventually become more valuable than that? Or
Honestly, the whole speculators thing is a load of bullshit. So I don't think it would necessarily get any more or less valuable. Just like it depends on how in demand the books are.
I do remember one of the rare privileges of DC moments for me was when I was talking to a collector who was the dad of a friend of mine from high school, and we were just talking about Batman randomly because we were waiting for my friend to get back, and he said, "Oh, I have something you'd probably like to see," and he brought out this like very carefully preserved and laminated copy of the first issue of Detective Comics that he had, and
Really?
And that was interesting to read. That was great. And he also had a Man Who Smiles, like the first Joker, and all that fun stuff. He had a really old school DC collection that's like really valuable, apparently. And I got to read some of it, and it was the original issues. It wasn't even hardcovers or anything.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Like I tend to go for the hardcovers and stuff over the original issues, just because one, they keep longer, and two, I read more for the stories more than like the collectability of the issues.
Fair enough.
Moving on, how did each of you actually get involved with comics? Because I know personally my brother got me into them, and it's just been a bad habit ever since. But
Nick was the big one for getting me to read comics more and more. So
my dad got me reading Calvin and Hobbes at a very young age to try and improve vocabulary. And then I remember going to the public library one day and thinking, "Oh, Calvin and Hobbes, I guess all comics must be like this and be funny and blah 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 blah." And I had been this was at about age 12 when I had started to branch into reading shit like Stephen King, and I had actually read a Dostoevsky book at that point, which I didn't understand any of, but was able to read somehow. I read The Idiot when I was 12. I read The Idiot when I was 12. I understood maybe 50% of everything that was being said in that book at the time. And now I'd say I understand about 80% of it. So
I read last semester.
Getting back on track. I think it's pretty safe to say that it was
I saw a copy of V for Vendetta in the local library and thought, "Oh, a comic book. This must be fun and silly." And I started reading it, and I read through the whole thing before I left the library that day. And I instantly took it home and read it compulsively cover to cover for the next 2 to 3 years. And that got me into Alan Moore through Vertigo, which by extension then got me into DC Comics.
Yeah.
And what the first true DC comic I ever actually read was Alan Moore's first issue of The Swamp Thing.
Ooh, good stuff.
That was the first DC comic I read. So the first DC characters I ever read were The Swamp Thing and Etrigan.
You can't go wrong with either of them.
True. Oh, and Woodrue, who nobody appreciates.
No.
Because he's kind of a loser.
He kind of is. But anyway, getting back on track, I think it's pretty safe to say that it was Nick and I that got Emmy J more into the whole
hang on, I actually talked to Emmy J about this, and it's not just us, it's also her boyfriend Anthony that needs a little bit of credit here.
Okay,
Yeah,
good man then.
Is a comic maniac, and you walk into his room, his whole entire wall is just like comic books, like shelves and shelves and shelves, and it's crazy. Yeah, so he got me interested, and then when I was approached by Nick to do, I don't know if we'll get to this later, but to do the voice of Robin, and then Connor to do the voice of Lois, I was like, I have to read up on these people, and between the artwork and the stories and everything, who doesn't love superheroes? Who doesn't love comics? It's
people who just don't have any joy.
That's
in
actually
their lives.
a great segue. Who are your favorite characters? I gotta go with Nightwing. I gotta go with Nightwing. I gotta go with Batman. And I also really, really, really like Deadshot. Deadshot is awesome.
Deadshot's fun.
Deadshot is fun.
I don't know, I'm gonna name my 2 favorite heroes and my 2 favorite villains. Number 1 obviously is Batman. Number 2 is Green Arrow. And for villains, number 1 is Joker, and of course number 2 is Slade Wilson, a.k.a. Deathstroke.
And the
Also,
boner
no
begins.
one is surprised by any of these picks.
You're not surprised?
Knowing
I think I'm alone over here, but I love Damian Wayne as Robin. And that's probably because I studied him, looked him up online, read as many comics with him as possible, and he's just like a little brat, and I love that about him. And yeah, no. Are we allowed to say any spoilers here?
I mean, there's obviously going to be some sort of spoilers because we're going to talk about favorite stories and things. But keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was sad that he doesn't really make it, but
Although
I
apparently
hear
they're
he's
bringing him
coming
back.
but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, that's what I heard.
I
So
know, he's the Robin that's known to die.
No, that's
And
Jason.
That's Jason Todd.
Him.
No,
But he comes back, though, so...
That dies a lot.
I know.
Was he the one that was red?
Red Hood is
Yeah,
Jason Todd.
He's the one who goes, bam! Oh.
Yeah, Jason
Yeah.
Todd. They actually had a vote to decide whether or not he lived or died, and someone rigged their phone to call DC every 5 minutes with a kill him vote, and so just left the phone calling overnight.
Wow.
That's awful.
I wonder if people
Someone
did that for Gwen
dedicated to
Stacy,
seeing
too.
it.
God,
All right, so Jake, your turn. Going around in the circle here.
Oh god, well, for characters like heroes, it's my favorite concepts are Dr. Manhattan and the Swamp Thing in terms of exploring the concept of omniscience, and that's just because Alan Moore kicks ass. Favorite, like strict sort of old school DC heroes, probably The Question, to be honest.
I love Vic Sage.
I gotta put
so
The Question
much.
up there.
He's one of my favorites too, especially in like the flavor he got from JLU. The really like I like the concept that he's someone who is so freaking intelligent. He sees connections where there aren't necessarily any. He notices those patterns that people just don't pick up on, and that's kind of where the whole conspiracy nut thing came from.
He's kind of like the odd Batman, that's for sure.
Well, I wouldn't even call him so much a Batman type character. Because Batman is... Because I've talked about...
He's more paranoid.
Extensively, but Batman's the character... Yeah. Well, the thing about The Question is he is not as, like, monomaniacally fixated on his job as Batman is. I don't think, anyone is, but...
Well, he's a moral absolutist, just in the same way that Batman is, but I feel like he's slightly less Machiavellian than the character of Batman.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The question will will let you know what's going on.
And I feel like Batman relies on the things that he believes all people are inherently bad enough to do, and the Question refuses to rely on people at all. He relies on information alone.
Yeah, I think
separately from believing in the character of people or things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate statement. And
Batman has a lot to do with the character of people.
I agree with that. But answering the question on my part, Superman is and always will be my favorite hero. Surprising no one if you've ever talked to me for more than like 10 minutes.
Anti-Monitor's my favorite villain.
And I'm also going to go for another obscure favorite hero of mine, which is the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, which, unless you've sort of watched like the cartoons and read some of the comics, you don't really know who the hell he is.
He's the Young Justice Blue Beetle you're talking about, right?
Yeah, but Young Justice fucked up his portrayal really bad.
Okay.
My favorite version of the Blue Beetle is Dan Dreiberg in Watchmen. But it basically is.
Okay, people, New 52, yay or nay?
No.
yay, but that's because I have it before. It's given me like a chance to like catch up with you guys and follow like storylines.
Yay.
I still need to know a little bit.
Yay in certain aspects, nay in others. That's my big thing right there.
I mean, as always, I feel like the artwork is always improving no matter what you do, but as far as writing goes for the New 52, I'm just...
I'm with you. It feels like a huge step back in terms of the writing ability, because
and part of that is because they downsized their budget on that.
Yeah. It's kind of like a step forward, but a step back. That's what it is.
Well, again, the art is something that's always improving as, techniques get better.
Did I hear Eric correctly?
Also, they're trying to write stories about characters like Harley Quinn and Catwoman, and they don't have any female writers.
It's literally only Gail Simone.
Did I hear Eric correctly that it's...
There are no female writers in DC other than Gail Simone.
Well, I think Amanda Connors just started writing.
Did I hear Eric correctly saying that it's like a step forward and then a step back? So you're exactly where you were at the beginning?
I feel like it's taking a step forward into a car and then driving in reverse for about 20 minutes.
I do like the new artwork. Some of the new artists are terrific.
No, some of the new artists are very good, but I can...
And they're making a point of not constraining style on the art this time.
I do like that, but I'm someone who gets, super invested in the stories and the characters, and so seeing these characters taken back to essentially square one and undoing so much of the development they've had over some of them as much as 7 years of stories, and getting rebuilt in this way that is very fundamentally different from what I know and love about them, it angers me a lot, and I did give it a try. I tried to get through the first storyline of each of the New 52 books as they were coming out. Some lasted longer than others, but in the end, it's just there was none of what I loved.
But
there was very little.
can't-
Like, Animal Man was good.
I can't figure out what their target demographic with all these changes is supposed to be. Like, who are they making all these weird stylistic changes for? That's what I don't get.
It's the same. They're targeting the same audience they always have. They're just going more like '90s image about it.
But the thing about the thing about New 52 though is that it does give some characters a fresh start, such as Damian Wayne.
It does. That is true.
It gives characters like Damian Wayne a fresh start.
They didn't change anything about Damian going into the New 52.
Damian was a little bit more of a bitch in the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul than he is in the actual Batman and Robin New 52s.
Did you read the intervening series that came after the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul?
No.
Because the thing is, that got him to the point he is in the New 52. Essentially, they just took him from the end of that Batman and Robin series and just went. Basically, it seems like the only characters that really worked are the ones they didn't change a damn thing about.
Going on to the next question. Women in comics. Good representation in DC Comics or overly sexualized?
Compared to what?
I don't know, do you just...
Anything?
Like, in general, are they just good representations or are they overly sexualized? Because certain characters, like Harley Quinn, is definitely overly sexualized. She's wearing the, what the hell are those called? Corset things.
Corset?
Yeah. And
Like
she's
Corsets.
just overly
Definitely more so
sexualized.
than what she used to be.
Well, but one
Yeah.
thing I will say about Harley Quinn is how unnecessarily sexualized she is often comes down to the artist, but writing-wise, I feel like the sexual component has always been a huge element of her character as they've gotten brave enough to explore the sadomasochistic element of her relationship with Joker.
Yeah,
so that's
I
a
can
part of
agree
it,
with
but
that.
they do often go over the top with it, and sometimes it results in it degrades the character to a degree that seems unnecessary because Joker's already beating the crap out of her and talking down to her most of the time, so it doesn't feel necessary for the writers to degrade her too.
I mean, you have her, but then, like, I feel like a lot of the
narrative to
outfits
degrade her too.
are really sexual, like, no matter who it is, but then there are also, like, really strong women, I feel like. Like, Lois Lane, for instance, like, everything that I've read with her, she's like, yeah, she's snarky, and she's not afraid to throw it in Superman's face, and this is Superman. And, like, as we were working, and, like, Connor was, like, helping me with the character, like, he was like, you know, she's the only one who can literally and figuratively grab Superman by the balls. And, like, so that's kind of cool, because, like, that's a woman. And then, what's Mera, the Aquaman's
Mira.
wife?
Mira.
She can kick ass, which is awesome. And,
I was talking to Nick about this the other night, which really annoys the piss out of me, is that in the New 52, she is Aquaman's queen, but they are not married.
really?
Because
I didn't-
So they
DC
don't-
has a whole... We'll be going into this later, but just to put my 2 cents in the whole sexuality thing, I feel like the best example of DC's like attitude to dealing with female sexuality in comics right now is just Starfire and Red Hood and the Outlaws, which is basically, they took, Starfire, this very happy character, this one who's very centered in her emotions and, the emotions of others, a very positive character in so many ways, and basically turned her into a wish fulfillment girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The thing
basically.
that annoys me about how they treat the characters, both writing-wise and just artistically, is if you sexualize them in ways that make what they do completely impractical. Like if you put Selena Kyle in a costume that leaves her breasts hanging out and they're going to scrape against a laser she's crawling over, that starts to annoy me. So the Arkham City costume started to annoy me. If you put supervillains who are supposed to fly through space in almost no clothing, that makes even less sense to me. And you guys get the point.
Yeah.
I don't know. One person that I'm surprised no one has brought up is like Wonder Woman. That's definitely There's actually a documentary I think that either came out or is coming out where it celebrates Wonder Woman, who is the empowerment of strong women, and even from that Justice League movie, they made a joke how her outfit makes her look like a whore. her like a slut for some reason.
And they can always claim, oh well, we want to honor the original design. You can always use that excuse with Wonder Woman, and I feel like they've been playing that excuse immensely well.
This was a different outfit compared to like the normal Wonder Woman, where it like covered up her chest area, so you did not see any cleavage at all. So it's like I kind of like that look for Wonder Woman. That sort of like you don't need to like show off things, to be honest, and she's still powerful as it is.
The other thing is in terms of Wonder Woman, I feel like even Wonder Woman, but I feel like even with the costume, she was never like hypersexualized like they've done with Starfire, and to a lesser degree recently Harley Quinn. I think in a sense that is like a character decision, but in another it's just she didn't do things that made it sexual. So even though she wore an outfit that is more revealing than say Catwoman or Starfire, well maybe not Starfire, but it felt less sexual because of how the character did things.
But also, you not take it from a cultural standpoint.
Poison Ivy is a character that relies on sex to get half of her work done, so it's half of her powers utilize sex and pheromones and shit. So they're able to make all the blatant fan service stuff they do with her make sense in the storyline.
I want some fan service for, like, the girls over here. Like,
the closest thing to fan service I've seen on the male characters is the way they did Nightwing in Arkham City. That's the closest I've seen to a really decent, sexualized DC male, you know? I mean, Bruce Wayne, they do it from time to time when Alfred's patching him up and they show almost everything, but it's really not enough. They need more man meat in DC, you know?
Let's go into space and let's talk. Which Lantern Corps do you actually want to control? Like, what Lantern would you want to be?
This was a really hard one. Did you say red?
No, green.
Green.
I feel like for me, depending on my mood at the time, it either falls into blue or red. Because you hit one of my Berserk buttons, I go off.
It's...
Blue or indigo?
Green is... Yeah. Green for me is basically just straight telekinesis no matter what you do, and the point for me is that everyone in comics who's had telekinesis never does it right. If you actually think about it, if you applied telekinesis down to the molecular and subatomic level, you could basically have more or less godlike powers if you worked at it for a little while.
That's what Molecule Man is in Marvel.
Basically.
Here's another dividing question. Who is the greatest Batman adversary? Go.
I'm going to go Ra's al Ghul.
Greatest in terms of what they've accomplished or the most fun to read?
I think that's your I think it's up to you to decide what that is. And for me, I'm thinking of this in terms of who is sort of the biggest, who has put Batman through the most, who has maybe not even put Batman through the most, but the guy who is very much, for me, like the Joker's the obvious pick, but I kind of got to go Ra's al Ghul. Because one, he is someone who has as much resources as Batman, who can throw around as much stuff as Batman, if not much more even. And they're very diametrically opposed in a way that he and the Joker aren't. But I still feel like they're very much equal and opposite, but in different ways.
For me, the greatest in terms of what they've accomplished is probably Bane in the night, just because the Nightfall storyline alone makes Bane one of the most effective villains in Batman's history. I feel like Joker's the standard because he's the perfect opposite to Batman and all that. So there's like probably 50 books of literary analysis on why Joker is the antithesis of Batman, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite is still going to be, and Connor knows this, one of my favorite Batman villains is always going to be Hush. Even though they've done shit with him after his first, most amazing friggin' storyline, Hush is still one of my favorite things out there because Tommy Elliott was one of my favorite characters. He was.
I can agree with that.
He was one of the most morally ambiguous Batman characters. He was one of the most sympathetic Batman villains I saw, and he was also just one of the most perfect people to go toe-to-toe with him.
I don't know if I would
so
call
great.
Tommy Elliott in any way sympathetic.
Really?
In a book I
in
read
the Hush
about the
storyline?
psychology.
He was still planning on correct me if I'm misremembering this, but was his plan not to fucking murder his parents? And did he not want, one of his motivations for, revenge on Bruce being that Bruce's father fucking saved his parents' lives
yeah.
after the disaster he engineered?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I found Tommy Elliott a sympathetic character because of how he went from childhood to adult and the way that he and Bruce had this sort of polar opposite development.
I can feel that. I don't know if I'd call it sympathetic, but yeah, I know what you're getting at.
Back on subject, in a book I've read recently called Batman and the Psychology, it really does give a good list about all the different villains and how, of course, as what's been said, each one sort of reflects and challenges the Dark Knight. I mean, obviously, the logical one is the Riddler, who challenged him, keep his mind straight, as like that monologue said. Each villain has their perks and some challenge that brings to the Dark Knight. But out of all of them, it definitely has to be probably the Joker, since it was his first sort of big villain to fight against, and causes the most crime. And especially with Batman, how he's all about control to a man who's insane and creates chaos and loses order.
The thing,
And the Joker has no concept of control or order. I feel like because Bruce Wayne lives by control and order almost out of his slightly sad mommy-daddy desperation issue, but for among other reasons. And the Joker lives without a concept of order because he's legitimately insane.
the thing about Joker,
I feel like they change how much they characterize the Joker's insanity, and I feel like the Joker's at his most intimidating when it's made clear that a lot of what would actually happen, the Joker allows to fall to pure chance. And there have been times that the Joker's been stopped simply because he let chance dictate the outcome and he lost, versus because he was smart enough to have a backup. And just as many times as the Joker's won for that same reason.
the thing about Joker, though,
because he doesn't have anything to lose. That's what makes him so dangerous. Because he doesn't care.
the thing about Joker, though, is that
what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
I think that Joker physically is not hard for Batman to take down. And if there's going to be one person who challenges both Batman's mind and his body together, that man is Ra's al Ghul. The one person who can checkmate him at every point.
And Bane.
Yeah.
They make Bane. They always change whether Bane is smart or stupid. Pretty much every other storyline. Have you noticed that? He's either this psychotic moron or he's this brilliant tactician. It's
in Nightfall, the way he breaks Bruce is, one, he figures out Batman is Bruce Wayne, and the other thing is that he actually breaks Arkham wide the hell open and points every villain at an entrance to the Batcave.
He finds the perfect way to exhaust Batman without even being detectable. It's crazy.
Do you like the DC animated universe, and what are some of your favorite moments?
I like that they actually hire individual actors for almost every character.
I really do too. It gives the whole world so much more personality, but I love the DCAU because, for one, it builds these great individual stories for all these characters. It builds into expanding this huge, wide universe that gives a spotlight to a lot of these characters. And they've
also created their own storylines. I mean, we wouldn't have Harley Quinn without the DCAU.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And that was my introduction to the characters, too. That's how I knew about Two-Face and
that's how
the Joker and Riddler. Yeah, so growing up in the 90s, you turn on the TV, Saturday morning cartoons, that's what's up. I also really like
Batman I give them credit for being able to make the Joker scary without being allowed to have him kill anyone. They were good at that.
I think they did mention about that.
Am I blue?
But, I don't know, again, I guess the biggest one, that's your favorite moment, isn't it, Nick?
No. One of them, though.
Batman's
my
second
favorite
chapter.
is the Batman animated universe, because that was sort of like the big one that sort of started everything to like the Superman animated series to the Justice League. So it was all from Batman. That's what started it all.
And
And there's like
Wave
so many
originally
moments
spawned-
I remember.
And it's also such a classic that it's now one of the things that animators still look at for writing. It's
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it still holds
But,
up.
yeah,
That's
like-
one of the things I find most impressive about it.
yeah.
there's so many
And I
memorable
will say-
moments in there.
Hmm.
Like
And I will
don't know. There we go. Yeah.
While Batman definitely was the start, in my opinion, JLU was the one that, that was the pinnacle for me. Because not only does it have very wonderfully done characterization for pretty much every character in the show, but it also has a really, really well done, cohesive plot that examines a lot of the themes of superheroics in general, which is something
And they have
that
whole new storylines and everything.
and while Batman, the animated series, did do that, they never really had much in the terms of like a cohesive narrative for the stories. There wasn't much like series continuity, like building, telling a greater story on top of each other.
Yeah,
I like that the
with
DCAU
Justice League-
writers had the balls to actually show the anti-life equation as an object.
That
especially-
that was ballsy, because it's always been like a mulligan of the series, and then then they actually showed it as an actual like ball of light or
Justice
whatever the
League-
hell.
I think again with Justice League, it's just like all trying to build up to like the big final like episode of the season. Like again with the I'm probably gonna say the name wrong, but the Thanagarian like invasion in like the first season, and how like the villains and the heroes teamed up in the second season. So it was like all building up to like that final episode.
The Brainiac
again,
finale,
Batman,
the Dark Side
like
finale.
with the Batman. Batman was pretty episodic, but there was sort of like some weird, interesting flow, because at the beginning of the Batman animated series, you see Harvey Dent, not as Two-Face, but just as regular Harvey Dent, and he's friends with Bruce Wayne. And then you see the progression of Harvey Two-Face, and you see how horrible he becomes. So there is sort of like some progression, but it's not as obvious as Justice League, which it is actually pretty good to see sort of things coming together.
Yeah, and Justice League also followed a 3-act narrative structure. It, beginning, middle, end, pacing, different storylines interleaved. And they did so much in that show with all these different characters and gave each of them this very unique, distinct voice. And although, just going back to what Jake said about...
JLU devoted like half a season to a villain's storyline.
Yeah.
Like, they devoted almost half a season to Lex Luthor's personal storyline. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I really do, just going back to what you said about that final episode, that World of Cardboard speech, that when fucking Superman is just about to destroy Darkseid, that was such an awesome speech. I love that speech. They do some great stuff. I have that memorized, but just that fucking punch, Jesus Christ. And I think more of a shit.
They started doing some really amazing stuff with the animation as it went on.
Oh, they really
I do remember
did.
Justice League thinking, the fight scenes were kind of lazily animated as they were clearly sort of getting off the ground with the show. And then by the time you've gotten to JLU, they have the most intricately choreographed and animated fight scenes you'll ever see. It's great.
Joaquin Dos Santos, man, the guy they call him Dr. Fight for a reason, but just again, with DC Animated Universe, the thing that is great, aside from, building these characters, building these original storylines, and doing some amazing stuff with it, you really get invested. Like, you want to know what happens next. You really, care about what happens to these characters. You're interested in the storyline and everything, which is not something I can say for most of the DC movies. And I feel like in that regard, and in terms of writing, in terms of acting even, because the voice acting on the DC Animated series is just incredible. But I feel like DC's animated stuff is just leagues ahead of even their movies, and I'd say even leagues ahead of the Marvel movies in terms of telling a great story and also, doing characterization, making it fun and enjoyable.
So I guess that makes that.
Well, here's my thing I've noticed. There's one thing I've noticed, especially sort of like whether to do a TV show or movie on a character. And I definitely think that TV shows are the best way to have a character to be really well done, to see them progress more and more, because
it's an episodic medium.
A movie has. Yeah, and that's what's good, especially with comics. But with a movie, you definitely need to focus more on, the event at hand. And so it's you got to rush with the, character development or, establishing and all that. And it has to be focused all around that event itself. Just like each episode has their own events.
I feel like that is nullified by a
like a whole
screenwriter.
universe. With film, you're restricted to honoring the old one.
Okay, well...
Yeah, but I feel like those problems are nullified by a screenwriter who knows what the fuck they're doing. But
to actually move forward, I guess a good thing to actually focus on, in terms, especially with the idea of characterization, is what makes a good hero, what makes a good villain.
Whether it applies to heroes or villains, whether it applies to a hero or villain, a good character is one that you can love and hate at the same time. Whether it is a villain or hero, personally, that's my thought of a good character.
I feel like that's definitely partially true, but I feel like there's a lot of great moments where I feel like that kind of leads into a very sort of anti-heroic concept of the hero, in the sense that because I'm okay with having a hero that you don't necessarily hate, like question their decisions, question what they're doing, think maybe there's another way they could have done things better, but I don't ever really think it's a good thing to have you actively hate your protagonist.
I'm not saying hate all the time, but just it's you can't always love him, but you have to hate for something he's done, think it's a bad idea.
I feel that's what I'm saying. I think it's fine to question, but I don't know if hate's the right word for it, because I like stories with main characters with heroes that I fucking hate. I don't read because I hate them. And even if it's very spotty, like hit or miss, love or hate with the character, then you can get very frustrated with that.
But there's something about seeing a character grow that I know really draws me into character kind of maybe they start crappy, and I feel like a lot of them do. I mean, look at Batman's beginnings. He had a really tough start, and then he used that to motivate himself. And as a reader or watcher, however you're learning about this character, you see that, and it's kind of inspirational, I guess. And it's there's a little bit of a hero in everyone, especially Batman, because he is human. Whereas Superman is from a different world, you're wow, this guy's doing this with his brains, his body, and technology, and
although
he's this amazing person.
With Superman and Batman, there is a very different concept of a hero in play, and that with Batman, he's the guy that despite on a practical level, it's fucking impossible to do the shit Batman does, but he's the guy who you think you could be, the guy you could really try and be.
And
with Superman, he's the guy. With Superman, he's the guy you want to be. Basically, Batman is the character. Yeah, Batman is the character who, when it comes down to how he does things, Batman is. I talked to Nick about this, but each member of the Trinity, does things differently, and Batman is very much the sort of character of justice. He is, you cross the line, you will get smacked the fuck down hard by him. And
Batman is Superman, the precursor to Rorschach.
Pretty much, and yeah, but even literally, although he was more inspired by the question, but with Superman, he is the character who basically shows all that we can aspire to be. And so
can be the voice of reason in a way, right?
Can be the voice
morality,
of reason. Can be, yeah, and that's not to say that he's he's perfect, that he just knows right and wrong instinctively, because he does make mistakes. But ultimately, Superman is the guy who is always going to put the greater good ahead of the personal good, and who is always going to try his hardest to do the right thing, and give sort of an ideal to aspire to.
I feel like in the world of comics, the value of the character, hero or villain, often comes down to whether the character is designed to be a concept or a character. And you have things like some of my favorites are Dr. Manhattan and the Swamp Thing, where the concept eventually transcends the character, and the character is no longer the most important point. Like the personal element is no longer the most important point of the character's existence. Whereas when you have something like Batman, where the concept is very easily pushing the bound of realism, but is meant to be constrained by a realistic character. The whole point of Batman is that we invest in the human element versus all of the fantastical stuff that we know could never be done. And so Batman is something where the character is more significant than the concept, and the concept is therefore just secondary, whereas Superman is sort of where they both have to meet halfway, because Superman is the almost all-powerful character at first, and especially in his first introduction, he's an almost all-powerful character.
Well, actually, he was a lot weaker in his initial introduction. It was the Silver Age where he got like fucking god tier.
No, I mean just in terms of having such a blunt concept of a man with nearly limitless super strength, laser vision, all this stuff, clearly not a human being, not constrained by realism, but they also made him someone who was limited, and especially his personality began to interfere with the concept more often than not, and he had to be a character that was able to meet halfway with the concept. And I feel like you have those different areas of where the balance goes with the characters, whether it's about them being a superpowered character or whether it's about them being a human character that you identify with.
Let's look at the DC characters, the heroes, the villains, and this is a question that me and Connor were discussing yesterday, especially last night with my take on it. Is which character would you want to hang out with? Personally, I'm going to go with Flash. Flash seems laid back, and I would love to do an eating competition with him. I won't win, but I would love to just have
the Wally West Flash.
Either Wally West or Barry Allen. I think both of them are interesting and funny characters.
Either one seems fun.
Well, but the thing is, there is a big difference between Barry and Wally. Wally is definitely the more laid-back, fun guy. Barry, well, not, very high-strung. He is someone who is a very sort of scientific, quiet thinker type more than anything. And I'd say, if you want to talk about their personality in terms of, biggest weakness, Barry is that he overanalyzes shit to the moon.
Well, let's just see here. Who do you guys want to hang out with? Who would you want to go to the bar and have a beer with?
I don't think I would want to go with a hero.
Then you can choose a villain.
Oh, who would you go with?
I don't know if I'm curious. Hang with a hero.
Really? Well, who do you choose?
Who would I want to just hang out, go to a bar with sometime?
Like I said, I want to go and party with Flash.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind hanging out with Captain Boomerang, to be honest. Is that kind of sad? I wouldn't mind hanging out with Captain Boomerang. He seems pretty awesome.
Captain Boomerang's a cool dude.
I would love to just get coffee with the Question and hear all his conspiracy theories about Star Wars. I feel like I would be drawn into that.
I agree with you on that. That was what I was thinking too, because I would just love to see to sit the Question down and just go.
Just take Raymond Ghazi's class and you've got all of that.
I don't want to get a drink with Lois, because she's
Lois?
so business-like. I mean, I know she's not technically a hero or.
It's a DC character.
Lois has more balls than most people, so I call her a fucking hero.
Yeah, you go out with her, get a couple drinks with her. I bet she'd be super fun. I bet she'd be dancing, and, Usually
Lois is
people are very business-oriented. You bring them out, and they're the most fun because they let loose and they need it.
Yeah, just work with them during the day and party with them at night. I don't know. For me, I would like to have a cup of tea with Alfred, and then have a beer with Oliver Queen. I would say.
You lost me at Oliver Queen.
Is this actual Oliver Queen or Arrow Oliver Queen?
I gotta admit, I probably gotta go with the the original Oliver Queen, because I do admit that the New 52 Oliver Queen is a little bit, I don't know, a little dramatic.
Underwritten.
So I don't know, but yeah, like for like a nice fun time, I would definitely go with the Oliver Queen. But what were you saying, Nick?
I would love to go
what do you mean?
You have a-
Like who would I just want to? I'd want to have like a barbecue.
Just like,
Oh, with you. Oliver Queen, I don't think is an interesting character. I really don't. I think he's a spoiled brat who needs to be left on an island in order to figure out that he needs to do something with his life.
Here's the thing. While that is true, the interesting character stuff comes when he comes back, realizes, wow, I was a piece of shit, and is going back to try and sort of correct a lot of his mistakes, trying to fix the problems in his life, trying to make life better for other people in ways that he had not done before.
I just don't like.
What's wrong with that? What is not?
I just don't like people who don't have
You've not read
that
much
initial
Green Arrow.
ambition. I don't like that. I don't like people who don't have that initial ambition or ambition.
And so to play devil's advocate here, then couldn't the same thing be said about Bruce Wayne, because the entire motivator for him doing what he does is his parents getting shot?
No, but he took
Yeah.
Not
initiative.
necessarily agree with
He
that.
took initiative, and he actually
Yeah,
and he actually focused down. And come on, he was what,
because he had
9?
an inciting incident.
He was like 9 years old.
well, and also like Oliver Queen. Yeah, and as like the psychology, he skipped the complete grieving stage and went right to like anger. That's what he did. But with Oliver Queen, like he has a consciousness to reflect what he's done and wants to become a better person for it.
And Oliver Queen is one of the things that makes him interesting is that he is a deeply flawed character who is trying really hard to fix how fucked up his life is in so many ways. And just the effect, basically, he's trying to be a hero not only to sort of, try and be someone that, he doesn't feel like he's wasted his life being, but he does it to help people because he, really... He's a very Robin Hood-esque character, champion of the downtrodden and that, because, you know what, when you're a rich fucking socialite, you're a worthless piece of shit, and he realizes that. But the other thing is, he is someone who... He's a character who is very much defined by his flaws. And so I feel there's a lot of interesting stuff to be done there. And
I'd like to go skiing on Tuckerman's Ravine with Victor Fries out of the suit. That'd be fun.
That would be interesting. I'd love to just hear what Freeze is like in small talk.
Out of the suit.
Oh no, yeah, you already said.
No, because if you go to Tuckerman's Ravine with Victor Fries, you can just go skiing like nearly stark fucking naked with nothing on but ski boots, and it helps him stay alive.
Okay, let's change gears.
Awesome.
Let's change gears. The ban on romance from DC Comics, yay or nay? We've got hundreds of couples that have hundreds of couples. Well, not hundreds, but a lot of couples that have been torn apart. You've got Mira and Aquaman.
And for the yeah,
No.
and
BS.
for those of you who haven't heard the full story of this, Batwoman is a lesbian character, and the writer and artist, the creative team behind Batwoman, was planning on doing was having her get married to her longtime girlfriend. And they've done all the build-up to it, and DC shot down the idea of, doing the actual marriage. Not out of any problem with the gay and lesbian community, although there was definitely some fire, backlash.
They just didn't want characters. They just didn't want characters being married like that.
Yeah, and DC. I'm going to paraphrase here, get this as close as I can, but heroes shouldn't have, according to DC, heroes shouldn't have happy personal lives. They're committed to being that person, and at great personal expense and sacrifice and such. Look at the Bat family of characters; their personal lives suck, and it's great that they try and establish, more personal lives. But it's equally important that they set it aside. And my response to that is pretty much. Not everything has to be like, not everything has to be like Batman. 2, God forbid there's any fucking joy in escapist fiction, because, grim, gritty, dark bullshit. And I feel like there's so much interesting stuff you can do with the relationships that you're just completely missing out.
And 3, all you gotta do to piss Connor off is rip Lois and Superman apart, because they did.
Woo!
Fuck you!
I don't know, like, they were so good together, and I feel like that additional emotional baggage at stake, like when Superman goes into battle, or anyone who has any, whether it's romantic or emotional, whatever, that tie, that human connection, raises the stakes. Like, it's a big thing. Also, in the movies, like, if there wasn't a Rachel or a Lois, that takes away so much of your audience, because honestly, that's half of why I like to see these movies.
I feel like removing that sort of thing, as much as you want to make these characters as human as possible, it definitely removes sort of like an element of being to like have love and affection, even like through hard times, and that is what we people need, especially if we're going through like a rough time in our lives. That we need someone to like just hold on to, or just to hug during like our difficult moments. And it just doesn't seem right to like Superman can't get a hug because he's having a rough time. He needs a hug. Superman needs a hug once in a while.
And like you
Well,
see
no,
that
he's
too.
with Wonder Woman now.
I have to point out the obvious joke that unlike Lois, Wonder Woman wouldn't be killed by Superman sex.
That's the Mallrats thing.
Oh, that's the Mallrats thing? I've never seen Mallrats thing.
Yeah, that's the
Just
Mallrats
because he
thing.
can be super strong doesn't mean he's gonna pull like a Twilight on Lois.
Rocking the bell.
Somehow it got in!
If Superman can fucking, if Superman can open a
You
fucking
can plug
door
an oil
without
spill
ripping it
by
off
fucking it.
He
each
has
thrust,
control, I'd like to think.
yeah. No, he does. He wouldn't be around people if he didn't.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of Justice Leagues. We've had the animated universe Justice League. We've had the New 52 Justice Leagues. There's been 3 Justice Leagues in the New 52, for God's sakes.
We've got the old time.
You've got the old time. Who is your Justice
old
League?
stuff from the
Meaning,
60s.
who are the 7 members who are making up the Justice League for you guys?
For me,
I've got to
I
go
like
with
the
the original
animated one.
7. I've got to go with the original 7, being the comic book guy of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Aquaman. I love that
Yeah.
lineup. I love the stuff you can do with that lineup.
That was
And
why I
feel
liked the animated lineup. When they first started Justice League, I thought it was great.
I admit that's probably like the people that I think of when I think of the Justice League. That's 7 right there. That's honestly what I think of.
And adding Cyborg to adding Cyborg to the Justice League is just a sham. You cannot add Cyborg.
Basically, the thing is, I like Cyborg just fine.
Yeah, me too.
But I feel like making him a founding member of the League is a bit much. It feels like DC is trying really hard to, they're just trying to have a black character in there for the sake of having a black character in there,
Why
then-
not just use Jon Stewart?
And then DC Animated Universe. DC Animated Universe, they came out with Justice League Origin, and they replaced Aquaman with frickin' Captain Marvel.
Shazam.
Which Captain fucking Marvel?
It's Captain Marvel.
Either way, yeah. In the Justice League War, yeah. That,
I like that they
whole
make a joke about
anime
that
movie.
in the AU.
There's the people in the office it's Captain Marvel. No, it's Captain Shazam. A civil war within DC comics.
But yeah,
If you work for DC, you're probably legally obligated to call him Shazam at this point.
Yeah, but I don't get the
it's
rationale
like
behind
people
it.
in Chicago.
I think they also did it
Sour.
we don't have to do this, but we want to keep having a decent relationship with Marvel, so we'll do this.
Oh, like the last 50 years of the character's existence have done so much damage.
You pointed out earlier that it seems like they're trying to throw in a black character for the sake of having a black character, and it brings up the idea, does DC Comics do a good job of representing minorities and other lifestyles, like the actual homosexual community?
Not nearly as much as other publishers.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I feel like even in a lot of their attempts to to represent, these people, I feel like they fuck it up. Like Simon
Also
Baz
remember,
had a lot of
DC Comics were they were the last people to stop adhering to the comics code. They still adhered to it up until it was more or less amended and abolished altogether. It was DC Comics has always been trying way too hard to keep their comics appropriate a lot, and that's why they've now had this opportunity to hire out, and they do all these things that are now separate from the main canon, and they can almost disown in a way. So they have things like Lovers and Madmen, they have all these independent storylines that use their characters in different ways, but I feel like the core DC universe has always tried so hard to stay very very politically correct to a degree of following norms from decades earlier.
I don't know if I agree entirely with that motivation, but yeah, I agree on the effect.
Yeah,
one of
a
the
lot
things
of their characters come from a very, very early American sensibility in terms of just when the comic actually started, which is it's limiting.
And speaking of that very early American sensibility, I have a question for you guys, which is, what do you think of when they turned Green Lantern Alan Scott gay in the reboot? What do you think of that move? Because I have an opinion on it, and I'll share that in a moment. But
does he live in the Golden Age years, or does he live in the present in the reboot?
I honestly don't even know. Earth 2's timeline is weird.
That would be important to me. If they actually tried to create, if they actually decided to take this character and make him sort of this is a closeted character in this era, that's a very interesting approach. That's fascinating. Whereas if they're just moving him to the modern era and therefore making him gay, it feels less less shocking, less like it's a big deal.
What Connor was talking to me about last night was that.
Yeah. Shall I bring this up?
I could always do it too. But you can do it. You can do it.
That's my point. Yeah, it's my point. But I feel like that they actually did more harm than good with that character change. And here's my reasoning. One, in making him gay, you eliminate from canon a pre-existing gay character, his son, Obsidian. And the other thing that they do in that, which is Alan Scott, like you pointed out, is someone who grew up in the Golden Age years. He was raised in the 1920s when homosexuality and alternate lifestyles were very much taboo. And
so that would make it even more interesting for me.
Well, let me finish what I'm saying here. Is that despite that, he had a very loving relationship with his son. Name a comic that has a father of a gay character having accepting their son. Name a positive father-son relationship with a homosexual
comes
character.
Pretty close, but that's a negative character.
Yeah, that's a very negative character.
No, I know. I'm making a joke.
But yeah, you had a relationship that you didn't have in comics, which is a father who loved and accepted his son, even though he was homosexual, and his father was raised in a time where that was really unacceptable and weird and shit.
I remember reading some storyline about a more golden age Marvel superhero who had a mutant kid, and they had a whole issue going on with that, and they used it as a parallel for race and gay rights at the time. That's the closest I can think of.
Well, that's the whole X-Men, but
that's the whole X-Men generation, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of why I feel it does more harm than good, because you eliminate a positive relationship that you don't really see portrayed in comics with an existing father and son. So I feel like you not only eliminated an existing gay character, but you get rid of this positive relationship which you don't see.
Let's return back to the New 52.
Nobody's seen that? Oh,
what?
No, I got it.
What character do you desperately want or desperately not want to see the New 52 do a running series of? For me, they haven't done a Dr. Fate for a long time. And I'd love to see Dr. Fate make his return.
Haven't they been using him in the Constantine of the New 52 quite a lot?
Oh, have they been?
I don't know. I don't read Constantine.
I thought they had this whole thing going on with, like, John Constantine currently has possession of the helmet, and that's like a running undercurrent storyline or something.
That's the helmet, but is Dr. Fate present? No. And I think Dr. Fate is an awesome character.
There isn't a Dr. Fate character wearing the helmet. No, yeah. But Dr. Fate could also be any character, which I like about that. They could introduce any random new character. There have been so many awesome iterations.
God, I really can't think of one because a lot of my favorites have already been done.
Which character do you not want to see ruined?
Tommy Elliott. I want to see a new use of Tommy Elliott.
Yeah, but the question is, do you have faith in DC? Do you have faith in DC not to fuck it up?
Not really, but I still would like to see.
That's why this is a double-sided question. Is that you've got characters that you desperately want to see return, versus characters that you love that you don't want to see DC fuck up.
I really want to see Hush come back, but I know DC probably wouldn't be able to do it right with the current Batman lineup or something.
They haven't been able to do him right beforehand, aside from that initial storyline.
Yeah, they always fuck him up, and his initial storyline was so good.
It was fantastic. It's one of my favorite Batmans.
Have they done anything with Jervis Tetch?
Yes.
New 52?
Yes, they have.
Oh, with
He was in Dark Knight.
Oh, I haven't read it then. I'll have to check that out.
It's not very good.
They make him a lot crazier, though.
They definitely
less technically technologically apt and stuff like that. Or?
I'd say more likely to fly off the handle.
Because I mean, there's this whole thing that Jervis Tetch actually knows how to do all this weird ass mind control shit that I found impressive.
Yeah.
No, yeah, he's a very smart guy. But Emmy J, what character would you want to see done in like a new way or that?
Well, I don't know if I want to see like maybe a reoccurring character, but I think this is a perfect opportunity, like revamping the whole universe, to bring in stronger female characters or stronger characters of different nationalities.
I'd like to see Barbara Gordon go independent and get some female version of a Robin.
See, that would be really cool.
I would like that, but yeah, but I really liked her as Oracle. Like,
no, she was great as Oracle, but she was also great as Batgirl.
She was, but I feel like she was stronger as Oracle.
You're missing.
I just like to see Barbara Gordon either as Batgirl or Oracle go off separate from Bruce.
You're missing.
Because I feel like ultimately everyone who works on the Bruce.
You're missing what happened in volume 4 of Batman and Robin that just came out. Okay. Requiem for Damian, where you've got Batgirl who has literally ripped the bat off of her chest, but she's still using the bat suit. You have a new introduction of a possible Robin who's a girl, in the fact that they've brought Carrie Kelly into the DC New 52 universe.
And they've also reintroduced Stephanie Brown in Batman Eternal.
Didn't know that.
Oh, I'll have to read that.
Yeah, I'm hearing good things. It's not Future's End.
They're bringing in in the Grayson comic that's going to be coming out, they're bringing in a sort of side person for Grayson to work with, which is Helena Bertinelli. And she's going to be wielding a crossbow and everything. I don't know if she's Huntress or what, but she's working for Spiral alongside Dick Grayson. It's going to be awesome.
Can I just say that Spiral is the, most weak sauce name for a spy organization ever, and it's not even spelled like, it's dictionary spelling, it's S-P-Y-R-A-L. Spiral.
I'm gonna give it a chance.
When you see the promo image of Dick Grayson holding a handgun and shit, I'm just like, oh no.
I don't know, I know, in Young Justice, at the very end, it showed, Vandal Savage teaming up with Darkseid.
That I find slightly plausible.
Honestly, I find that very implausible.
What,
Implausible?
what? And a Darkseid agreeing to team up with an immortal?
I think that would be like an interesting battle for the Justice League.
I feel like Vandal Savage's ego would get in the way. I don't feel like that's a team up that would work without, because they'd both be trying to stab each other in the back.
They would totally be. But the problem is that they wouldn't be able to most of the time. Savage, I feel like Savage might ultimately come out with it just because fucking immortality. But
I don't see how he could get a better. Well, Darkseid is a little bit immortal himself.
I don't know. That's just one thing I'd like to see.
I thought Darkseid was killable.
He is, but he's biologically immortal, and let's face it, he's as tough, if not tougher, depending on your incarnation, than Superman. What the fuck is Vandal Savage going to do, especially without a kryptonite?
Doesn't he always have them?
Be like, haha, you can't kill me.
Basically, just keep getting beaten to death repeatedly.
Pretty much, and the other thing is, like, would Darkseid's Omega Beams be able to kill Vandal Savage? Because there wouldn't be anything left.
Well, I thought that they demonstrated that Vandal Savage wasn't just biologically immortal, that he could come back from any injury or whatever the hell it was.
Well, that's not an injury, that's incineration.
There's nothing left.
Yeah,
there's nothing left to regenerate from.
It's kind of how they dealt with Angela Bassett's character in American Horror Story.
I thought you were going to just say that's how they dealt with Angela Bassett.
No. What?
Yeah, they incinerated Angela Bassett.
What? Who did?
I want to move into a new direction here, and this is something that me and Connor were talking about last night. Is we already have heard that there's going to be a Justice League live action movie that's going to probably come out in 2017. Now, who is your casting for Justice League? And we're going to nail it down for which characters you are able to work with. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern John Stewart, Wally West Flash, Aquaman, and Hawk.
Green Lantern John Stewart, I'd want it to be Idris Elba.
Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Yes! Thank you!
Andrew, who?
Idris Elba, he's a British dude. He was the giant friggin' Guardian in Thor.
Yeah, he was Heimdall.
Yeah, he was Heimdall in Thor. He's also he was in the new Ridley Scott movie. He's an amazing actor. He'd be great.
Yeah, and also he was in Pacific Rim. He was in Pacific Rim.
Yes, that's right. He was.
Say Donald Glover. Donald Glover for.
As a young John Stewart?
Donald Glover's a bit too old, I think, at this point.
You think so?
I actually say
John Stewart is too old.
I actually say
because he looks kind of old in the 80s.
I actually say Leonard Roberts.
Glover's really old to be playing.
Are you talking about Danny Glover or Donald Glover?
Donald.
Donald Glover is the actor from Community.
Okay, I was getting confused with Danny Glover.
I think he's too young to be John Stewart.
I think he's too young.
I'd say
I think he's too young.
I would have liked him as Spider-Man, but
for Green Lantern.
Yeah,
I think he would have done a great Miles.
They campaigned to have him be Peter Parker, and he would have been great.
For Green Lantern, John Stewart, I'd say Leonard Roberts from Heroes, the guy who plays Micah's dad.
Ooh,
it's a good choice. It is a good choice, but I still have to go Idris Elba.
I would
rewatch.
want Martian Manhunter to be either a black or Arabic character. I feel like in his human form, because he's always really great because he's got this sort of foreign quality to him when he's in The Martian. So I kind of like that idea of adapting that way.
Yeah, no, and a lot of the times they do portray the John Jones alter ego as black.
What?
Yeah.
But in terms of Superman, do we keep Henry Cavill? Because I think he does a good job.
I think
I like Brandon Ruth. I like Brandon
with the right writing. With the right writing, I think he could do some good.
I think Henry Cavill could be a really good Superman with a script that doesn't suck ass and a director who isn't worse. So
did you guys not like Brandon Ruth? Or?
Brandon Ruth didn't leave a tremendous impression on me.
Fair enough.
He looked a little too young, although I guess that has sort of changed given, the time that's passed between the release of Superman Returns and now. But yeah, he felt fine, but he didn't leave a tremendous impression because essentially what he was doing was playing an homage to the Christopher Reeve Superman, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, Batman. I mean, I'm not big on the Ben Affleck, but I would have wanted to see Christian Bale reprise the role because I actually like Christian Bale Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he would work against more fantastical DC characters like Martian Manhunter and Superman, because the Christian Bale Batman is so coldly realistic a lot of the time that I don't know if it would work with the fantastic elements of DC Universe. And
even then, in terms of Christian Bale, I'm going to go on record as saying, look back at the Nolan Batman trilogy. Batman was the least interesting, least awesome part of those movies because no one talks.
Always the interesting point.
Yeah, because you look at Dark Knight. You have people talking about the plot, about the sort of questions about human nature. You have them talking about Heath Ledger's portrayal as the Joker. Mm-hmm. I would
like Michael Keaton
Batman a lot more. I thought Michael Keaton was.
I thought Michael Keaton was good, but the way they did Batman, as he was still sort of a neutral character in a way, he wasn't incredibly aggressive as Bale. He had a sense of neutrality about him, but Michael Keaton also granted it a degree of humor, which I feel like you have to be able to counterbalance the deliberately harsh personality with a certain degree of humor with Batman. And I think Kevin Conroy is brilliant at that. Yeah. So I'd love to see a live action actor who can pull that kind of double act off.
Emily looked like she wanted to say something
about Batman.
Yeah.
I liked Christian Bale.
I thought he was fine. He just didn't do anything spectacular. Like, he didn't do anything that really made me think like that is Batman. Because let's be real, you could have replaced him in the suit with anyone. You wouldn't have been able to tell the fucking difference.
Oh.
True.
Okay, now
if they couldn't do his voice.
But his acting was good as Bruce Wayne. He was a good actor.
Yeah,
but
again, Bruce,
for all the different roles he had to play.
Like the slicked hair.
Yeah.
Now the underachiever of the Trinity right now is definitely Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She does not have the body, even if she's got the looks.
She really
she's been working out, and she does not look
for Wonder Woman. I feel like they don't want something. They don't want someone who's like stick man. They want someone beefy for Wonder Woman because she's meant to be an Amazon, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, and depending on your canon, depending on where you're going from, sometimes she is portrayed as being taller than Superman.
Yeah,
by like a noticeable amount.
Oh God, what's that?
Jessica Paré from Mad Men. I don't know, like the Don Draper's second wife. She's tall. She's got really dark hair.
How muscular?
She's not necessarily.
How muscular?
She needs to pack on some muscle because, I'd like to think I'm fairly athletic, and I would like to see an athletic woman in a movie. I understand a lot of actresses.
I'd like to see a more athletic-looking actor for the part of Wonder Woman. Yeah, not someone who's creepy sexual.
This woman's young. I think Jennifer Lawrence, if she was a little bit older, she would definitely do a good job. What she's done. Really?
She's not nearly old enough.
I mean, her body.
Cute. She's too cute.
Yeah, she'd need to age another decade or so, I think.
I'd say Jamie Alexander.
She needs to get older, but I think she would definitely be good.
I haven't seen anything where she walks into the room, she fucking owns that room. And Wonder Woman can have that very commanding presence, and I haven't seen anything
Did you
of
see
Lawrence
American
trying
Hustle?
to do something. Yeah, and again, I felt like her cuteness kind of undercut it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Alexander might work. You might need to get a little stronger.
Have you seen the stuff that's going on with that new Tom Cruise movie? There's one scene where she's doing push-ups and she's actually got huge freaking muscles. I'm like,
oh yeah, Emily Blunt's, yeah.
What
about Katie Sackhoff, or one of the more sci-fi women? They'd probably be great for Wonder Woman.
I can see Katie Sackhoff, yeah.
Maybe I was going to Beckinsale.
But you know what I mean? One of those sort of military types from TV.
Yeah. one of my friends, when I was like, who would you guys do for this? Because I asked around because I was a little curious because I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who really works. Someone mentioned from Farscape. The name of the character is escaping me right now. Give me 1 second to look this up. Claudia Black, who was what is her name? Aaron's son in Farscape.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
like that's one thing they could work.
I
Like,
know.
one person I think who definitely has like the physical ability, like the looks of Wonder Woman, is Gina Carano, but she's not the best actress. And the thing is, she's an MMA fighter. She's got the fucking muscle to do it. If you like, I feel like if you saw her in like a movie lift up a fucking car, you're like, yep, I buy that.
But as for Gal Gadot, you don't buy it at all. She's no.
Not. She's like what, 5'2" and 130 pounds.
Probably not even 130. I would
Yeah. Yeah.
highly doubt that.
Let's change characters. Flash,
Yeah.
Wally West.
Maybe
Who's the
Charlie's-
actress I'm thinking of?
Wally West, Flash.
Oh God, Wally West.
Oh.
I looked.
If it
I
was
was
10 years, if it was 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said John Barrow.
I was looking around online for like 30
If it
minutes
was
for
like
this.
5 years ago, I would have said John Barrowman should be Superman.
I was looking around for like 30 minutes on
No, I
this,
feel like-
and it was Chris.
John Barrowman's still in amazing shape, for the record.
It was Chris Pine
Oh,
or
yes.
Garrett Hedlund, and I was leaning more towards Garrett Hedlund, who was in.
What about Eddie? Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Oh, what's his name?
Eddie Redmayne. Like I think he's, a British
I think he's too young right now.
young. See, I'm always like picking these young people. I need to do my research.
You need to look for redheads, redheaded
Yeah.
actors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rupert Grint.
Well, okay,
got
one
him
thing-
shaved? Nah.
No.
No, that would
Well,
be
okay,
horrible.
No.
They are having their own spin-off of a Flash TV show.
That's Barry Allen, though.
Justin.
That's Barry Allen. That's not Wally West.
But that's Barry Allen? Oh.
Yeah, no, Wally
and
West. Wally West
Oh,
has
and
to be a ginger. He has to be a ginger.
Yeah, because Wally West is a ginger.
Definitely not. The only ginger I can think of right now is either Carrot Top or Rupert Grint, who are definitely not good choices.
Yeah.
Now, Aquaman. I think they did a perfect.
I know.
Carrot Top?
I think they did a perfect casting for
I know, that's
Aquaman.
the only redheaded person I could think of. So I said no.
I think they
Aquaman.
did a perfect casting for
I think-
Aquaman with Jason Momoa.
He's definitely a good choice, I would say. Like,
I think
if
he's
they
got
dye
the
his
chops to
hair.
pull it off. I think he's got the chops to pull it off. I don't know. It just he looks distractingly different from the Aquaman I know.
Turn his hair
I
blonde
think-
and it would work.
No, yeah, him with blonde
He
hair
definitely has the
would
body.
look
He
like
has
Barry
like nice
Atlantean.
olive tan skin. He's
Yeah, I like the idea
Hawaiian.
of having someone who's got like
Yeah.
so, like Hawaiian almost look going on. He's Samoan, I think, right? Or, yeah.
Yeah. And
he
hey,
actually
he
was
was
in
on
Baywatch, so.
Baywatch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's had.
If someone's got like the Hawaiian look with weirdly
swimming.
blonde hair, that'd be interesting.
All right, the last thing that remains, and this is actually the hardest in my opinion, is
Martian Manhunter?
no Hawkgirl, Shira Hall.
Oh.
That is tough. That is tough.
We didn't do We're not doing Martian Man.
No,
Christina
Oh yeah,
Hendricks.
we didn't do Martian Manhunter.
Stephen Hendricks, I like her.
Christina Hendricks
I really
would make a good Shire Hall.
what about Rachel McAdams? I thought Rachel McAdams might work.
See, I like
She doesn't have a commanding
doesn't.
enough presence, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if she's old
Like,
enough.
Maybe.
I've never seen
Charlize
a
Theron.
movie where like Rachel McAdams walks into the room and can like you get the sense she
Charlize
could
Theron. I
kick
could
anyone's
totally see
ass.
Charlize Theron as Shire Hall.
I can
Yo,
see that
that's
too.
actually yeah.
I could totally
dig
see
the
her
hell
as
out of
Shire
that.
Hall. Yeah.
No,
That's
yeah,
a good one.
yeah. I could
Yeah,
dig the hell out of
And they could
Just has
also
to dye her
make
hair.
it consciously a less like super pretty character in a way, because Hawkgirl's always got the armor on usually, and then as Shire she's got the mask up, but she's
Also
deliberately
with,
not
like,
like
Cherry-
super feminine.
But also with Charlize Theron, she transforms her body. She like actually made herself fat, like actually
For
ugly
Monster.
looking for like
Yeah.
monster
Yeah,
balls.
I'll be right back,
she
guys.
Yeah, she will
Really,
definitely-
really.
She she would.
Nah,
transform
she
herself
can be
to
really
Stone
chameleonic, so I
Puzzle.
bet she could do Shira Hall great and like wear the mask 80% of the time and still be incredibly convincing.
It takes a special kind of actor to have that sort of ability that you can't see half their face and you still know what they're all about. Like Carl Urban killed that in Dread. Carl Urban killed that in Dread.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, have we done Martian Manhunter
voice,
yet?
but not to exaggerate.
We haven't done Martian Manhunter just yet.
Oh,
Well, that was because we only had 7 slots for characters, because the Justice League is traditionally 7 people.
But I feel like the Martian Manhunter is a character that you need to have in there because pre-New 52, he was someone who was in every fucking incarnation of the Justice League. He was,
Okay, fair enough.
he was the heart and soul of that team.
I would like to see his human form played as an older character by an older actor, like he often does in the comics. Like,
But
have
like
Martian
his voice,
Manhunter
or
as like a green being can be played as a younger character, but as a human being be like a much older actor or something.
Yeah, like one person that kind of sticks out to me who has a sort of commanding presence, who can have this sort of very wizened look to him, is Ghassan Masood. He was Salah ad-Din in Kingdom of Heaven.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I think he could definitely pull off, doing like the face and emoting and stuff.
Morgan Freeman would be a good like human version of Martian Manhunter.
Maybe.
I could say
I
that.
wouldn't be
Maybe
able to
Denzel
take it
Washington, possibly?
I wouldn't be able to take Morgan
It would be
Freeman
hard to take it
seriously because he's
seriously, no.
Morgan Freeman.
But
I
he's
think
so
Denzel
fucking
Washington
good.
might be a good one. Maybe Denzel Washington. Kind of, sort of.
I don't know if he's.
I don't know. He's old enough, but sort of like the voice. I don't know. I'm looking at sort of like a list of actors, so it's like I'm trying to think who has a good deep voice.
Because I think
That's
he's
Samuel L.
also
Jackson? No.
No.
Samuel L.
Denzel
Jackson, that would be interesting.
No.
Wait, who?
Samuel L. Jackson as the Martian Manhunter.
Frickin', what's his name from...
Happens to both universes.
I'm forgetting the actor's name.
I'm just going to imagine him, he's just going to be screaming out.
I'm forgetting the actor's name. Darth Vader's voice. Mufasa.
James Earl Jones?
Yeah, James Earl Jones.
Oh, he'd be a great Martian Manhunter voice, but he's way too old to play the character, I think.
Yeah, he's way too old.
You know who might actually
I'm trying
even
to find
work?
someone who could do both.
I think Carl
Lamar.
Lumbly could do it, or maybe even Jamon Hanso.
If Phil Lamar did intense training for 2 years, he could do it.
Yeah, what about Jamon Hanso?
He'd be good. Or Adewale,
I think he could
whatever
do it.
his name is.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
what about the guy who was Mr. Echo and Lost? He'd be great. He's like just the right age now. Yeah, Adewale Akinuye Avaje, or however you say his name.
I'm not even. I know his name. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I know I'll fuck it
Either
up.
him or Tweedle Ejiofor would both be good. The dude who was the agent in Serenity.
Yeah. He was my first pick to be the Falcon in Captain America before they cast Anthony Mackie. I'd love to see, but Anthony Mackie did a good job. We're getting off topic though. I do really like the idea of someone like Jamon Hanso, Adewale. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, Adewale or Tweedle Ejiofor.
I still say Ghassan Masood could do a good job. Just like you need someone else to do the fight scenes, obviously, because he's pushing 60. But Ghassan Masood does have, how the Martian Manhunter typically is drawn with very sharp features. I think Ghassan Masood has that.
Yeah.
So, taking it back again towards the romance, I want to look at Superman and Batman romances specifically. Namely, for Superman, Lois Lane or Wonder Woman. And this should be a no-brainer, guys. Though we could...
Lois.
Fucking Lane. Lois.
Lane.
Okay, Lois Lane is uncontested. Eric, the question now is, we're looking back at the romantic interests, specifically Superman and Batman specifically. For Superman, Lois Lane or Wonder Woman?
Choose
Definitely
carefully.
Lois Lane, I gotta say.
Don't.
I'm gonna say Lois Lane is the first choice, but I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with Wonder Woman. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just curious, but I still choose Lois Lane.
Because
Okay.
like Lois and Clark work
Who would you
together
have play
on
Lois
so
Lane?
many.
Lois Lane.
Oh, that-
Who would be an
that's-
actor for
that's
Lois
nice.
Lane then? Oh, what's her
That's a good
name?
one.
Elizabeth Banks.
Actually, that
No, her with like black hair and as a professional.
Oh God, who's the girl with the dragon tattoo? I'm like,
Rooney
Rapace?
Mara?
Numi Rapace, whatever her name is.
She could, but she actually might be a little too young though for Lois Lane.
I've seen
That might be a
I've seen
problem.
Wait, Numi Rapace? Are you talking about Numi Rapace, or who are you talking about? Oh,
Rooney
you're
Mara.
talking about the
She,
character from the American version. I thought you were talking about the Swedish actress. She'd be good at
I
it.
mean, she's good. Yeah, but
She was
would
in
have that
Prometheus.
accent.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, she
also like one person I've seen that people have
Maybe
fan
Naomi
cast
Watts with
Lois
black
as.
hair.
I've seen people fan cast Olivia Wilde as Lois Lane,
Oh yeah, I've seen that too.
I can see
don't-
that.
and I
The eyes.
Her more as
she's a good
Starfire.
Yeah, because
Like-
she definitely like intense.
I'd see her more as Starfire.
like she
I don't think
definitely
she
has.
is enough to be Starfire. Like Starfire's like strong and like curvy and very sexy and womanly, and Olivia Wilde is a little bit more.
Stick
I don't know.
thin.
Straightforward. Yeah, she's very
She would
thin.
have been the
and then,
best option for Wonder Woman, maybe, if she trained.
if she put on some muscle, yeah. But I like her a lot as a lowest possibility.
I think it's definitely. I feel like it's a better fit than Amy Adams. Like I love Amy Adams as an actress, but she doesn't fit with like Lois for me.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
anyway, let's rein this back
the
in
red
since we're
hair.
all unanimous. We're all unanimous on Lois being the one true, the OTP
Yes.
Superman. Who would? Let's get into a little more nebulous question of who is the
better Batman.
quintessential person for Batman.
The better
I'd like to
Batman.
have Selena Kyle in some way. She's still my favorite most of the time.
Like
Yeah.
I definitely
Either her or I kind of like the way they almost did Talia in Dark Knight Rises. I kind of like that I feel like they sort of stuck that in there as a fan homage in a way, but it was still, I thought it was a nice way to do it. Was to have her be completely distinct from the League of Assassins.
We're not talking movies
do
anymore.
personally lean Selena Kyle.
We're talking in terms of
Okay.
best for the character.
I need to go. So I'm going to say Selena Kyle, and I will leave.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be signing off in a second too.
Okay.
What was our last question?
I still say Selena Kyle.
Best Batman romantic
Perfect.
interest.
Who's the best romance for Batman? And
I
like
don't,
Selena Kyle played by Aubrey Plaza.
part of me likes Catwoman, but that's just me. Okay.
no, we're all voting for Catwoman.
See, I like the Wonder Woman thing from animated universe though.
I
thought
love that.
I thought it was funny how he was so clearly intimidated by her more often than not.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was
And I-
great. That she.
What's the? Yeah, I really love that moment where he says if the villains I fight found out I had someone important to me, they'd do anything to get to me through you. And Wonder Woman just reaches over, casually just crushes like a stone gargoyle statue's head in her hand just to powder.
It's like
and just
not
goes,
even an
"Next."
issue.
No, she just goes next. Like next problem.
No, she's pretty
I did like
kick-ass.
his response was, "You're from an immortal race of warriors. I'm a rich kid with issues, serious issues."
No, it's you're a princess from a society of immortal Amazon warriors. I'm a rich kid with issues, lots of issues. I do like that DCAU
Connor.
voice was like self-conscious enough to
Connor, do that in your Batman voice.
Batman
Yes.
can't fly.
Okay, I'll do it. You're a princess from a society.
Attention, Batman can't fly.
Yeah, I could use some help because I can't fly at all. That would be nice.
No, do the
That was, and I love how
do the issues thing in your Batman voice.
Yeah. Okay. You're a princess from a society of immortal Amazon warriors. I'm a rich kid with issues. Lots of issues. Like, I'm no Kevin Conroy, but... However, I can do a more than adept Optimus Prime.
Okay. Okay.
Reading Cards Against Humanity in that voice is fun as hell.
That's actually how we got the H.H. Holmes voice going. Was kind of like
Pretty
that.
much. Yeah.
Well,
I'm voicing a serial killer. Anyway.
Oh yeah, Nick, you should get in on this.
Yeah, we'll talk about
Who should
it.
Nick voice? Yeah, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it after we wrap up.
okay.
Right.
So, I do have another question, which is I think more directed to MEJ, who
Yes.
you know, as the newer comic book reader, what is the thing that really appeals to you the most of like what you've seen, like out of the comics, like what character? Because we've mentioned, you know, favorite characters in that, but what character like intrigues you in a sense that you want to know more, or you want to see something more of them, that sort of thing.
Oh, he's going to give you
That's hard to
suggestions.
say because for me there are a lot of them because honestly I gravitate a little bit towards the darker characters because I want to understand what's made them the way that they are and like what makes them tick and you know what their true goals are. So I guess I really do love all of the Batman comics that I've read. I read a Batman Beyond comic. I really liked that.
I feel like Batman
I
Beyond's
guess-
comics are just weaker than the show. It's sad.
I love the show, but I was also guided towards a good Batman Beyond comic. So
You're welcome.
I like
Yeah,
Batman
completely.
Beyond.
I love
Thanks,
Batman Beyond's TV show, but
yeah,
I like
and
the
then
epilogue they did in Justice League with Amanda
Oh, that
Waller.
was great. Yeah.
That was
Connor,
adorable.
you sent me some Superman comics, and I was instantly just in love with Lois and Superman's relationship. Like, that was
Is it-
just so fun to read about, and made me happy and broke my heart all at the
MEJ.
same time. And
Is it on the level of
Yes.
Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone?
not yet, but I have a lot more reading to do. I have a lot
you do.
more.
You
I
do.
do.
It'll. I promise you, it'll get there for you.
So the next time we do one of these podcasts, I'm gonna have a lot more to say. So prepare yourselves.
We'll be prepared.
But
Yeah, and so I feel like let's move into a sort of wrap-up question here, in that, what to you guys is your favorite story? Which is the one that you just, you know, jumps out as like the one that is fucking special to you?
Nightfall is one of them for me, definitely.
Nightfall's very good.
Nightfall is...
I don't know.
I don't know. Can
Really?
we
I thought-
can we post this one and get
well,
back?
Killing Joke is obviously...
Yeah, sure. If you need to get going, Emmy, you can go.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna log off,
Alright.
but I'll think about this one. To be continued.
All right. See ya.
It's been real, guys.
Cool.
Let's do this even just for fun. Okay, bye. Miss you. Bye.
Bye.
I keep looking, like, I hear that sound, I keep, like, looking around to see if something fell.
But
But,
the story,
Yeah.
the story that I like, that I really like. I don't know. That's really hard because a lot of the stuff I've read is New 52, and those aren't even the best stories. But I have to say, out of what I do have, and this is not a lot, if you saw the shelf behind me, you'd see that only the first 2 parts of the shelf are actually filled out of 6. And I'm going to have to go on a limb and say Resurrection of Raish.
it's a good story. It's a very good story.
Nightfall and Hush are probably 2 of my favorites.
Yeah, there's a couple that really stand out for me. A lot of them are Superman stories, just because that's a character that really speaks to me more than most others.
The second series of Swamp Thing under Alan Moore. Nightmares and Dreamscapes.
It is
The one that was just like
fantastic.
Jason Blood and Swamp Thing and almost nothing else against against the incarnate of fear, and it was this like massive psychological story. Thought that was
Yeah.
amazing, and then they somehow fit the Justice League into it somewhere when Woodrue
Yeah.
was taking over the world, and I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with actually a non-Superman story for my favorite little. I have 2 that I'm gonna name here, neither of which are Superman stories, just because I want to try and not be predictable. But one is Villains United, which was like the breakaway hit from Infinite Crisis, which relaunched Secret Six, which rebooted a lot of villains who were considered like B-list to being real badasses, and telling this great story about this team of villains. And the other one is specifically, I think, issue 4 of The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, where when he's in hell, because that was that moment where Lucifer is like, okay, you have what you want, but why should I let you leave? And Morpheus goes, you're right, if you wanted to keep me, there's nothing I could do about it, but ask yourself this. What power would you have over those you torment in hell if they could not dream of heaven? And I'm just like, oh shit. The armies of hell just part ranks and let him pass. And that was just this moment of, whoa.
Neil Gaiman is brilliant, isn't he?
He really is. He's fucking fantastic. Like,
I kind of liked in the DCAU that Amazo represented a figure like all-powerful. He was like almost omnipotent and omniscient by the end of the DCAU run. I like
pretty much, yeah. No, and
I
really
I did not destroy it. I simply moved it to a pocket universe.
Yeah, I really love that. I really love that they gave Amazo a character.
Yeah.
Rather than just being a stupid android.
His personality is like a mesh of the Justice League personalities, almost.
Yeah, like he has those moments where the Flash comes to the front and he's hitting on Mercy.
Yeah. I liked Dr. Fate and the voice they had for him on that show.
They changed voice actors for him between Superman the Animated Series and Justice League.
No, I liked his voice better in Justice League. It was what's his name? The dude from The Mummy, the Israeli guy.
Yeah. I can't. His name's escaping me. I think it's like Omek something. I
thought it was Khalid something.
Anyway.
But no, he definitely had the great mystic voice.
Anyway, let's wrap up the podcast. We can talk a little bit more afterwards. But for everyone here at Another Universe Productions, you've been listening to the DC Comics podcast with Nick Jerzak, Jake Minter, Connor Jordan, Eric Jaworski, and Emily Jung. Thanks for listening.